one thing that I wish every artist who wants to give live wedding painting a go or start marketing themselves as a live wedding painter, I want them to understand that you can do it. When I'm painting at a wedding and somebody comes up to me and is like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I can't even draw a straight line. How many times have we heard that before? I think to myself, you could. It's not impossible. And I think that artists need to know that inherently. Also, to understand the importance, the weight of the task at hand. If you mess up, or if you perform badly, or if you have a bad attitude, or if you're late or whatever, it could wreck someone's wedding day. And you don't want to do that. Keep in mind that this is a wedding. This is not just another wedding. This is two people and their families' most anticipated life event. This is it. This is the day. You want to be well trained. You want to be professional. You want to feel confident and feel like an expert and feel like you can knock this out of the park. You want to feel that way. Get the practice in, do one or two for free with that clear expectation with your clients that you both understand that you're doing this for the first time. But if you're going to market yourself as a live wedding painter, it's really important to understand the weight of that responsibility and put in the time and practice in the studio, in the quiet, be the larger part of the iceberg, right? We only see the very tip of the iceberg. We don't see the weight and the time and the energy and the focus and the practice that goes in underneath the surface, right? And give yourself the time and the space and the opportunity to practice so that when you do book those paid jobs, that you are giving your absolute all and your clients can receive that and know that they're getting the best of the best. Welcome to The Composed Artist, the podcast where we explore the intersection of artistry, entrepreneurship, and self-improvement and continue to pursue a more composed life. I'm your host, Stephanie, an artist specializing in live wedding painting, living in the vibrant and soulful city of New Orleans. Over the past decade, my job has taken me all over the world, meeting and creating art in front of thousands of people, and has allowed me to create a colorful life for myself and my family. Now, I help other artists build confidence, develop their techniques, and fall in love with the art of live wedding painting. I invite you to join us for inspiring stories of creative journeys, practical tips for running a successful art business, and honest conversations about the joys and challenges of running a studio and being a parent. This podcast is here to keep you company, keep you entertained, and is full of resources to help you on your journey to create a business that feeds your soul, makes an impact, and is insanely profitable. The Composed Artist is the podcast for the bold, creative, passionate, and genuine artist. Let's get started. Hello, good morning. Welcome back. Today we're going to be switching it up a little bit. So when I started the podcast, I kind of launched with a couple of like solo episodes, and I really do want to offer advice and education and have like solid topics that we talk about on the podcast so that you can learn something. I like to listen to podcasts for the intention of either entertainment or learning something, education. I like to select an episode because I've got 30 minutes of free time or 30 minutes on the road and I want to learn something. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit of both. Okay. I've been interviewing guests, which feels very formal. More so, I've been having friends of mine come on the podcast and we've just been chatting and I've been loving it. I hope that you have too. At the time of this recording, we are celebrating 10 episodes. It doesn't feel like a lot. 10 is not a super high number, but considering the data, a lot of podcasts, in fact, most podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes. They just kind of fizzle out, which I completely understand how that happens because this is a lot of work. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. One of the questions that I received was, how do you do it all? And I don't. But I'll get into the questions in a minute. But I just wanted to thank you for sticking around this long. And I want to invite you to share feedback. Okay. Whether you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which is personally how I like to receive. That's how I like to listen to podcasts, or watching on YouTube. I'm sure you may have seen a couple of the little clips that we're sharing, and that's really exciting as well to see the conversations happen in a video format. So I hope you're enjoying those too. But if you have feedback, let me know. I am an eternal student. I know that starting this thing was going to be tough. It was going to be an uphill climb, and it has been, but it has been so fun and rewarding. The reason I started this podcast, and this kind of is going to tie into something we're going to talk about a little bit later. But the reason I decided to go ahead and start this podcast is because when I'm going through my online course, it is a guided course. So it's not, you can't just buy it and go through it on your own. The card opens at a certain period of time and then closes. I think it's like 10 days. The card is open for 10 days. And then everybody who signs up goes through the course at the same time. And I go through the course with you. There's a lot of live live interaction. We do critiques. Next year in 2025, we are adding a weekly assignment so that we can implement some of the things we're learning and we can tackle challenges together as a group. There have been about 40 new students, 40 new members over each year for the past 2 years. So this will be launch number 3. Very excited about launch number 3. But it would be really fun to tackle a challenge together every week. And somebody had mentioned it in feedback that they gave on the course last year whenever it wrapped up. I was asking for feedback, and somebody said, it'd be really great if we had something to tackle every single week physically so that we can all review it together. Something in terms of creating a painting or some sort of physical creative assignment. And I was like, that's a great idea. It's going to be in addition to the assignments that we go through together throughout the modules, but I'm just looking forward to it. Anyway, I knew I wanted to kind of go off script with this episode, but I can already tell it's going to be hard to kind of wrangle it in, right? So during the course, I'm going through everything with you, and every week we do like a live Q&A, and it's about 2 hours long, and it usually goes longer than 2 hours. But those live calls are the most fun I have in the whole course. I love the critiques, but we try to keep those at about an hour. And so we kind of are pressed for time, and we're trying to be really punchy and effective with our feedback and move on to serve as many students as we can. But the live calls, much more of an open dialogue, much more of a conversation. You can submit a question, I answer them. I get to see all of your faces because it is like a live Zoom call within the group. So it's not open to the public, it is within the group. And usually 20 or 30 people show up. And so it's a nice little turnout. And we learn a lot. The students learn a lot, and I also learn a lot. There is truth to the saying, you learn more when you teach. You really do have to wrap your head around. And as an artist, trying to now educate other artists, it's incredibly helpful for me to explain things, to explain techniques or processes that I know inherently, but trying to put it into words in a way that's digestible and has some sort of rhythm and rhyme to it. It's a challenge that I grab by the horns, and I really love it. I appreciate the challenge. I'm becoming a better artist and a better teacher as we go through the course. So the podcast presented an opportunity to extend that practice for me to practice speaking, practice teaching. I didn't know, I didn't know that I would be recording this on a camera. So, in my mind, in my vision, before I started the podcast, it was like, oh, I can totally write up some instruction, like write some sort of outline and then record it from the quiet privacy of my bedroom closet or whatever. But now that we've decided to record it to serve audiences who like to watch these things on YouTube, it's been an even bigger challenge. And I don't know if I've grabbed this one by the horns, but because it is hard, but here we are. This is, I don't know what episode this will be, but it is coming after episode 10. And I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share more of what I know with more people and hopefully inspire other artists and help them further their journey with confidence, um, the journey to being just a successful creative entrepreneur, maybe a live wedding painter specifically. Introduce them to other painting styles and other ways of running creative businesses. Yeah, I'm just hoping for this whole thing to be an inspiration and to help us connect, right? On top of the topic of live wedding painting and art, running creative businesses, also us gals. And I am going to be chatting with some dudes. I have lined up a couple of guys that I know and I'm friends with, and I'm so excited to have those conversations, because that will allow me to ask questions to a world of being a man who's an artist in the wedding industry. I have so many questions. I can't wait to hear from them. But there's a lot to be said about being able to relate on a level of being a wife or a mother, being a woman in the wedding industry, being a woman who's a business owner, who goes out and has interactions with clients and guests on their own. Just wanted to kind of offer a place for conversations to be had and shared experiences to be shared. So now you know a little bit more about me and about why I decided to start this podcast in general. So let's dive into those questions. We don't have too many. I'm going to try to keep this episode short. But today, let's dive into a couple of these questions. The first question, I'm just going to kick off with, how do you do it all? And to answer that bluntly, I don't. I can't. None of us can. I think that when you become a mother, you're forced to be as productive as possible, more productive than you could imagine being, than you were before you had kids. But because the little ones require your full attention, you can't really multitask. So in the off times, when they're taking a nap, when they're really little, when they're taking a nap, when they grow up a little bit and go to daycare, go to school, or you get a sitter, whatever your situation is, whatever free time you have, that's when you squeeze in productive work. And so you learn to become very efficient with your time, because if you procrastinate, like I tend to sometimes, then you pay the price later on, and you feel very hurried and very rushed and very resentful towards yourself and maybe even your kids. And that's a horrible way to live. So in order to have any sense of control and peace and routine, you have to be very, very productive in the time that you do have. So I do my very best to be as productive as possible while my kids are in school. When I have babies, I try to keep them here so I can nurse, and I have a sitter. So I do have somebody sitting in the other room rocking my baby, which is very hard for a new mother to be separated for long periods of time. But I know it is right for me at this time in my life, because I feel fulfilled doing the work that I'm doing that is pulling me away from the baby. So I'm able to spend one-on-one time with the baby and with the children when I can. And then it's like equally fulfilling, and they are happy as well. If my children were more clingy or more distraught at the idea of being separated from me, then it would be much more difficult, and we'd have to have a different schedule and a different routine. But they're not. They're very independent. They're not super duper cuddly. So they need me occasionally, but then they're very independent, and I'm very grateful for that. That's kind of how I was growing up. And I think independence is great for little ones. So anyway, I do have a lot of help with the kids. My husband works very late hours. And so this little amount of time that I spend with him during the week, it is usually very late at night or very early in the morning. And we are both kind of in the same headspace of, oh, let's just relax and unwind together. And that's also very enjoyable. If he came home at like 4 or 5, then I would have to end my day a little earlier to prepare to be present. You just work out your routines, and that's our routine. And then on the weekends, when I'm traveling for weddings, he either stops working because he's a lawyer. I don't know if you've heard other earlier episodes, but my husband is an attorney, and he has his own firm. And so every spare moment of his life, he is dedicating to reading what he needs to read, or composing documents, or preparing for trials, or whatever. So it's very time consuming, and it requires a lot of him, a lot of his focus and energy. So I fully respect that, because as an artist, every spare moment, like my whole brain is thinking about the things that I want to create or need to create for my clients, new fun ideas for my business. It can be very all consuming. And so we get each other. So we're very supportive about what the other needs, what the other, like what their deadlines are, what kind of energy they need, what kind of space they need. So in terms of my relationship, we're doing really well. But if he required any more of my time, then I would probably be less productive with work. So my family, being independent and being busy as they are, allows me more time to do the things that you see me doing, that you hear me doing, all the things you see on Instagram, all the weddings that I do, all the traveling, doing this podcast, doing the course, all the things is squeezed in between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. at the latest. Usually I leave around 4 to go get them. But like this evening, I have a babysitter who's going to pick them up from school and go get Chick-fil-A. And so I can work a little bit longer today. So yeah, it's about being as productive as you can with the time that you have. And also, sidebar, I know what it's like to have children at home, and it's really, really hard to be productive for any certain length of time. And so I see you, I see the struggle, I hear you. When the only time you can get anything done is after 9 p.m. and you're exhausted and you've given all you can give all day long to other people, and then you have 2 to 3 hours to be creative, to pursue your goals, to build your business. I know how hard that is. I know how hard that can be, and you're doing a great job. And you're moving that needle every little bit. If it's what you really, really want, then just keep at it, keep doing it. Success finds you working. Motivation will come, like just push past those hard times, because you have to remember the babies, the toddlers, they're not going to be babies and toddlers forever. So I could go on and on about, no, I don't want to start crying on this podcast, but spend the time that you have with your little ones, because they will be gone and won't want anything to do with you before you know it. So that's just a little reminder to myself when I'm listening back to this later. I used to be so scared. I mean, terrified to bring oil paints to a wedding or an event that I was painting at, until I realized that Gamblin has me covered with all of the mediums, the paint thinner, the varnish, the whole gambit. I love using Gamsol as an odorless paint thinner. Okay, this is what I use to wash my brushes to thin the paint. I use a big jug of that to slow the drying time. If I'm trying to finish a painting and layer and do all of that, I use Galkid. It's a very thick medium that I love to use with my oil paints. And let's say it's very dry, it's a very hot and dry environment. I love to slow the drying time with refined linseed oil. This is my medium of choice for my oil paints. And when the painting is dry and I'm ready to send it off to the client, I varnish it with Gamvar, high gloss. That's my preference. And Gamblin has you covered with your preference as well. You can visit their website, www.gamblincolors.com. That's spelled GAMBLIN colors.com, or you can click the link in the show notes to shop my preference for oil painting mediums. Check them out and thank me later. What else do? I started the podcast. Like I said earlier, the goal for the podcast is for me to practice talking and teaching, and to offer a platform for other artists to tell their stories and to have really meaningful conversations. And by meaningful, I mean I want to talk about common misconceptions about working in the wedding industry, or the actual real dirty truth and struggles of live wedding painting and what that job looks like, trying to balance life and creative pursuits, being a mother, being an artist, all of those things. I want to have these deeper conversations, and I'm very excited about the conversations that I've been having. I'm very grateful to the artists who've been on the podcast so far. It has been so much fun and so inspiring for me. I think I mentioned in every single episode, oh, I have this question for you, but it's really just for selfish reasons, because I truly want to know, but it is also great for all of you to hear as well. So, another reason that I started the podcast, and I'll be completely honest, I wanted to build trust with people who are maybe looking to me or the course. They're considering signing up for my online course, The Wedding Painter's Blueprint. We are going to be launching that course in January, and I hope to launch it every single year. It has been incredibly fruitful for me and for the students and the members who have signed up. And I will be talking about that more, but I'm not selling that today. We're not really talking about that today. But a lot of people hear about it for the first time at some point. Everybody hears about the course for the first time at some point. And I wanted to give them an opportunity to learn more about me as a teacher, learn more about my story and why I do what I do, and, get a sense of how I talk or how I teach, or what the level of generosity that I'm putting forward. I just it's a trust builder. That's another reason why I wanted to step up on this platform of hosting a podcast, because hi, hello, I'm very honest and I try to be authentic, and I want you to get to know me. And so asking and answering these questions is a great way to do that. Live wedding painting, that is my main gig. I just posted a reel on Instagram about I had received a DM. If you go and look at it time. But anyway, there was a DM where somebody said, are you still doing live wedding painting? And I thought that made me so sad, because I haven't posted a lot of content about, or like marketing efforts about live wedding painting. I haven't talked about that a lot lately, because I've been talking about all these other things that I'm doing. And of course, I'm a live wedding painter. That is my favorite thing to do. One thing that I would really love to never do is quit live wedding painting. I know I'm not going to be 80 years old traveling around painting at weddings, but I definitely love this job. And I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. And to be completely honest, I don't, we are so fortunate that my husband has a great job, and he tells me all the time, you don't have to work. And that's not where we started. I definitely needed to work 6 years ago, 8 years ago when we met. But he tells me occasionally, you don't need to work, and that's a really wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful thing to be told by your spouse. I got you. We'll be okay. And every time he tells me that, I'm like, that's wonderful to hear. But I would never want to stop. I would do this for free. I would do this. I would do live wedding painting. I would be an artist. I'm going to be an artist no matter what. If let's see, I get in a horrible car accident and my right hand is mangled and I can't paint anymore, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to, you know, try with my left hand. I'm going to try a different medium. I'll become a musician. I'll do something creative, or run some sort of business, or work with people somehow, because the trifecta of those things that is live wedding painting is it's my happy place. So I will be doing that for the foreseeable future. So if you're listening and you're getting married, hit me up. I'd love to paint at your wedding. And then live wedding painters, artists who are interested in possibly adding live wedding painting to your service list. Let me know if you have any questions. I have an online course for artists who are wanting to either start their live wedding painting journey, or artists who have been doing it for a little while, but they really would like to learn more very quickly and improve their style and improve their technique and all the things. Yeah, I'm here to help you with that. Let's see, what else do I do? Commission work is seasonal. I have a list of commissions that were accepted in January that I'm still working through. With all the things going on, it is hard for me to focus on studio commission work, because it's time consuming and it requires me to only use my right brain. So I really have to either segment the time. I need to, what I call it is hermit mode. So a lot of times in the past, I will accept commissions right before Christmas, leading up to the holidays, and then I go into hermit mode, and I don't do anything else. I may check emails for like 30 minutes in the morning, but like that's it. I don't worry about admin stuff. I book all of my commissions. I crank them out over the course of 2 months, and then go into packaging mode, which takes a couple of weeks to varnish and package and ship all the artwork. So it's very kind of seasonal. So right now I have a few commissions, but today I'm not painting. So today I'm not a painter. Today I'm a podcast host, and I'll hop on and answer some emails later too. I did hire a virtual assistant a couple of months ago, and she's been incredibly helpful. Oh my gosh. Nicole has been helping me out, and she's just a wonderful source if I need something responded to really quickly, or a lot of times we'll ping pong. I'll be on the computer, she'll be on the road, and then we'll switch, and it's like, okay, you do this later. And hey, can you send me I don't know. We just work really well together, and she cares. I hired her because her mission is to help working mothers. And so that is being the driving force of her actions. She's very considerate of like the time that my boundaries, the time that I need to spend with my family, and my creative time as well. She is now she understands what I need, and so she'll offer suggestions. So she'll say, hey, I know you're doing this tomorrow, why don't you let me handle that? Here's content for the next 10 days, can you approve that in the next 10 minutes? And then it's handled. um, I've had employees in the past, and most of them have been in person, so they've come to the studio. But I will say the employees that I've had were at a point in their life where they were like either in school or right out of school, and it's they're you approach these forks in the road early in life more frequently. And so I don't want to say I've lost my employees. I have lost them, because losing them was a loss for me, because they were so wonderful when I had them helping me and working with me. But it was always going to be kind of part-time or short-lived or whatever. So it was very fun working with all my employees. And now I have help producing the podcast, and then I have my virtual assistant, and that's what the business looks like today. As of today, it will grow or shift, or it'll ebb and flow, but that's okay though. Keeping the team small has allowed me to set boundaries and stick to them, so I don't get too big too fast. And I think that that's helped me be able to turn things off and be present for my family. Because if I had more employees, or if I did more things or bigger things right now, I would be torn more. I'd be pulled more away from the family. So right now, we're good. This is really, I'm enjoying this chapter of life. So to answer the question, how do you do it all? I don't. I have a lot of help. And then if there's something that I want to do, I'll put it on the someday shelf. So the podcast, I wanted to do the podcast 5 years ago, but I was having babies, and I was traveling a lot for weddings, and experiencing a lot of burnout. And it just wasn't the right time until it was. And so, yeah, figure it. Don't be tempted to chase shiny objects at all times, like I am. I'm tempted all the time. Be intentional about what your goals are. This is just me offering advice. Be intentional about what your goals are, and be intentional about what your priority is, your priority overall, and then your priority for the day. And then don't get distracted if you can avoid it. And some days are not going to be your best days. Yesterday was a worthless day for me. I procrastinated. I did cook dinner, and I kind of meal prepped, so at least I can check that off the list. But not all days are super productive. So give yourself some grace. You may have heard me talk about my little side business, my little fine art print shop. I create an original painting, I take a photo of it, and I print it, and I print it again and again and again. I make hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars a year on prints. It's so easy. And I learned everything I know about creating my own prints and printing them in-house from Laurie Ann Gonzalez and her Art to Print course. I highly recommend, if you are an artist and you want to make easy money from your original works and even the commission works, you can resell those as prints. I recommend you check out Art to Print. Laurie Ann has a very direct way of teaching, and you are really going to appreciate her no fluff method of giving you information and telling you exactly what you need to do to make making fine art prints in your own studio a breeze. You can check her out online at learn.laurieannart.com. That's learn at LaurieAnnEart.com, or just click the link in the show notes for my affiliate link. Check her out and thank me later. The next question is, what is the most important lesson you've learned as a live wedding painter? The most important lesson I've learned, and I'm very happy to share this with you, we talk about it more inside the course. We go very deep and very intentional and purposeful inside the course, okay? So I'm not going to take everything that goes on inside the course and put it here for the public, but I will tell you this, the best, once I learned this tip, I became a faster, more accurate, and more confident live wedding painter. And that is brushwork economy and nailing every decision that I made. Okay. And what I mean by that is I didn't just kind of scribble on the canvas. I didn't overwork any one area. I didn't worry too much about getting the perfect blend of the paint. And this applies to acrylic painters or oil painters. And then one of the questions later is why I switched from acrylic to oil. So I'll talk about that later. But this applies to both. If you spend too much time kind of piddling with one area of the canvas, time will fly by. You'll lose track of your pace, and then you'll feel rushed and overwhelmed, and you'll make poor decisions after that, and you won't be able to achieve the finished product with as much grace and effectiveness and confidence. So and it does take time. This wasn't a tip that I learned. This wasn't something I learned in my first year. This was something I learned maybe 6 years into live wedding painting. Okay. If you can be more accurate with how you mix your colors, like you're looking at the scene or you're looking at the bride's gown and you're observing the color. If you're more accurate with mixing on the palette and then placing the brushstroke and just placing the brushstroke and lifting off and going for the next brushstroke, the next color, and you build like that and you just place the brushstroke and leave it alone, the canvas will be covered much more quickly, and you can piddle as you go, but you're not sitting there drawing the paint on. Does that make sense? See, it's really hard to describe in an audio format. Maybe I can't even show you on a video because all I'm doing is making a wiggling motion with my hand. But just give it a try. Practice brushwork economy. So practice using fewer brush strokes. Okay. We do exercises like that in the online course, The Wedding Painter's Blueprint, but you could do that right now at home. Just try using fewer brush strokes and being more intentional with how you mix the colors. And that's actually going to train you to be more intentional with what colors you're observing. You're going to see the right color. You're going to be able to tell with practice, of course. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself some time to practice. But you're going to be able to look at a wall and say, oh, okay, I see green tones. I see green and purple because that's that kind of cool gray. And then you'll be able to mix those colors more accurately, more quickly. And then you place that brush stroke and that's the right color. It is correct. So once you can get to that point, then it speeds it up and it gives you more confidence. And also it allows you to kind of let go of perfectionism, which gives your painting so much room to breathe. That's why Impressionism, the art of painting with quick brushstrokes and seeing kind of a pattern or a static pattern of brush strokes, as opposed to blending everything and making everything crisp and clean. Impressionism it feels so lively. It feels so organic, and I like the term static because it feels like it's moving, feels alive. You can achieve an element of that if you keep your brushwork simple but effective. So anyway, challenge for you. That's a really good tip that I learned, if not the most important thing that I've learned, because there's a lot of other lessons too, but that one sticks out the most. Also, to have a very positive attitude, which is hard to do when you're tired and your back hurts. But if you're positive, then the people around you will have a better experience. And honestly, you'll have a better experience too. I like to remind myself if something is not working out well, or if it's taking longer than I thought to finish the bride's face, or you can't quite mix that color that you're aiming for and you're getting frustrated. If you smile and like step back and loosen up, if you just smile, then it helps give you this kind of psychological sense of it's all going to be okay. Because honestly, you can bring the painting back to the studio after. It's all going to be okay. Don't stress about it. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee. This is my post-lunch coffee. Are you still using cheap art supplies? Look, you don't have to tell me, but you know if you want to level up, you have to use better supplies. Come on, let's invest a little. I've been using Rosemary and Company for my paintbrushes for the past 5 years or so, and I have never thrown away one of these brushes. The quality is unmatched, and they're like reasonably priced. I hate to say it, but they're the best. So I love a long handled paintbrush. Okay. I love a hog hair or an ivory, which is kind of a mixed bristle hair. And Rosemary and Company, they have like so many options. So I would check them out. The website is www.rosemaryandco.com. That's Rosemary spelled Rosemary and co.com. Or you can just click the link in my show notes and it'll take you directly to my personal wish list. It's all the brushes that I use and recommend. So check them out and thank me later. In Louisiana, we have a handful of really, really delicious local coffee brands. I really love Community Coffee. Okay, the next question is, how do I market myself as a live wedding painter if I haven't done one yet? And I think that's a really good question. It's really hard to market yourself as something you've never done before, but if you're an artist, it would make sense for you to start sharing that you either are a live wedding painter or you can be a live wedding painter. I got into live wedding painting because a friend of mine asked me to paint at her wedding. And before I even did that wedding, I created a little graphic and I took one of my portrait paintings that I had done in the studio and I put it on Facebook and I started marketing myself as a live wedding painter. And then in the conversations that I was having with people from that graphic, they were asking, "Oh, did you do this at the wedding?" And I said, "No, I actually did this portrait in the studio, but let me tell you about the concept of live wedding painting." And this was back in 2015, whenever a lot of people didn't know about it. I had to do a lot of selling and I don't want to say convincing, but I definitely had to educate people on what on earth this idea was that you could, have a painter come and entertain at your wedding and create a painting from scratch and all the things. So right now, if you're joining the bandwagon right now, you have the added bonus of exposure. People know what it is. People desire that, there's a desire there. People want a live wedding painter. And so now you're just introducing yourself as a live wedding painter. Yeah, I could do that. So you can the best advice that I have for artists who have never done one but want to start promoting that they can is to simulate the experience in your own home. And here's what I mean. Of course, you can book if somebody asks you to paint at their wedding. Excuse me. Then go ahead and do it. Agree to do it. Do it for free. Do it for a discounted rate. Charge full price. Whatever. Do the job. Take the opportunity because that's going to be your best lesson learned to actually do it. But if you haven't booked one quite yet, but you want to create a painting that you can honestly market as a live painting done in a short amount of time, then just simulate the experience at home. Push your chair back and stand up for one. I know a lot of people will sit down to do the wedding paintings, but standing adds an element of I don't want to say rush, but like you can't get too comfortable, so you won't get too lazy, if that makes sense. If you're standing, you can see the room at a much better vantage point. You could talk to the guests at a much more welcoming vantage point. And honestly, your posture will be better. It'll help speed it up. Like that's one of the best reasons why I like to stand. And I've painted 9 months pregnant and I will sit down, I'll kind of rest on a little stool, but even then I can't work sitting down. It's just the craziest thing. So but if you like to sit down to work, be my guest, that's fine. But I'm just saying, if you want to get a sense of what it feels like to stand and paint, do it in your own home in the comfort and quiet and peace and privacy of your own space, right? I would blast some music because painting to a tempo is it helps you from getting distracted or bored, honestly. Set a timer for 4 hours, 5 hours. Give yourself some sort of time limit. Grab one or two reference photos. The reason I suggest two is because you can take a reference photo of the setting, like a room, and then practice putting a couple in it. Because more than likely, when you paint at the wedding for the first time, you will be doing that. You'll be looking at the room and painting from a reference photo before people get there. And then you're going to take a photo of the moment that's happening, whether it's candid or posed or whatever. And you're going to be adding the couple into the space. So if you give yourself an opportunity to practice that at home, then you will be one step further in having all this confidence that you know what you're doing and you can do this. The painting that you create, of course, you can finish it at your leisure. Of course, you can take your time, but at least you will know in your heart like what you can do in 4 hours with a time limit, with a goal. That's just advice that I give anybody who's wanting to know how to get into the game. And then post about it. Record the whole thing. Set up your phone on a tripod or on a bookshelf or whatever, and then record the whole process and create content from that. Because that is what people are seeing, especially on social media. Word of mouth is also an excellent way to market yourself. If you have existing clients, if you've done commission work, start spreading the word and just simply ask people to share that you're doing live wedding paintings now. If you know any photographers or wedding planners, or if you want to just reach out and kind of cold call a little bit and just say, hey, I'm an artist. I've been in this area forever. And this is a sample of my work, but I'm getting into live wedding paintings if you'd like to tell your clients. Word of mouth referrals are by far the most successful way that I've received business in my entire career. And I think a lot of other artists would agree. So that's how I would start. I would give yourself the practice if you can't receive real life practice just quite yet, if you haven't booked a wedding. Do that in your own home. Give yourself an idea of what you can achieve, what your style is, because let me tell you, if you're working from a photograph and you're giving yourself 30 hours to complete an 18 by 24 portrait of two people, the style of the painting is going to be worlds different than what you can create in 4 to 5 hours working from a photo of two people. Just a heads up, the style is going to be different. And I believe that you, in order to be authentic, you have to promote the style that you produce live. Unless it's part of your process to take it home and make it like photorealistic, like other artists do and do very well. Just be very open with your communication with your clients. Set a very clear expectation. This is what you get when you work with me. Okay. I hope that's helpful. Okay. So the next question is, what are some tips on flying with equipment? I mean, simply put, simplify, minimize, bring as little as you can imagine using on site. When I travel, if I'm carrying on, I will bring my Julienne French box easel. It's actually Maiden brand. I'll link to it in the show notes. I bring my French box easel and I use that as a carry-on, and I'll pack it with as much stuff as possible. And then I'll bring like a carry-on size suitcase and put my other equipment, my clothes, my shoes, whatever. And so I'm just bringing 2 bags. It's really heavy and that's a challenging way to travel, but that way you keep your stuff with you at all times. If you're going to check your bags, then try to fit as much as possible into one big bag. That's what I like to do. If you're traveling with a painting, if it's an acrylic painting, you can like box it up. Or you can bring I'm going to have to share an episode on how I travel with my wet oil paintings. It's a series of boxes and foam inserts and basically a really big portfolio carrier. But yeah, I would simplify as much as possible and plan for delays. If you're going to fly up the morning of a wedding, definitely give yourself as much elbow room as possible, as much buffer space between when you're supposed to land and when you're supposed to be at the wedding. Ideally, you would fly up the night before so that the risk is completely mitigated, the risk of travel delays or cancellations. That's flying. Okay. I can tell you that oil paints can be carried on because the FAA regulation for flammability is much higher than the flammability of a tube of oil paints, if that makes sense. I will include a link to where you can read the FAA regulations on that. And the only reason I know that is because I looked it up so that I can include a sheet of information and a note and all kind of stuff in with my oil paints if I choose to carry those on. Lately, I have been checking the bag just because it's a lot to travel with, and I can pack solvents and things like that. But you can't carry those things on. So anyway, I digress. Simplify as much as you can and pack light. And the best advice I could give you if you are flying to a different location is to make sure there is an art supply store wherever you are flying, somewhere near the airport or somewhere near the venue or just somewhere nearby, just in case your a TSA agent is feeling too big for their britches and confiscates and throws away your oil paints or whatever, or they prevent you or prohibit you from flying with your carrying on your French box easel. I will tell you, I've been flying for a long time and I have been able to carry on my French box easel, but it is bigger. So some of the smaller aircraft, if you're taking like a 30-minute hop, from the main airport to the little tiny airport in the mountains or whatever, sometimes those tiny aircraft don't have a lot of overhead space. So that's something to consider. If you know where you're flying, you can research how large the overhead compartment is. I would do a lot of research, and I would have plan B and plan C set in place in case you lose or break or forget any of your supplies. That is just being professional and covering your bases. And yeah, you don't ever want to not have a plan B when you're traveling for a job that you were paid to do. Okay, this is very important. This is someone's wedding day. If you're just traveling for funsies, then you can afford to figure it out when you get there. But if you're flying up to paint, somebody has paid for you to travel to their location, it's very important that you are the consummate professional and you have plan B and plan C just in case. That's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, the next question is, how do you get high quality photos of your artwork to put on your website? I've been using my iPhone, but I can't ever seem to get the lighting perfect across the canvas. If you're at a wedding and you're trying to photograph your work before you leave the painting, like if it's your process to finish the painting by the end of the night, and you're just trying to grab a quick photo that's good enough for you to use in your marketing and to put on your website before you leave the painting and never see it again, here's my trick. It doesn't always work, but I would consider this before anything else. I would take the painting into the kitchen of the venue. A lot of times the kitchen will have bright white LED lights. It feels a lot more sterile and not quite so warm and moody like the venue itself. But if they have a kitchen, see if you could bring it in there and prop it up on a counter and snap a few pictures with as natural or white light as possible. The yellow lights really distort the colors. You can use your lamp and try to kind of angle the light at one half of the canvas and then the other half, and take pictures of each half of the canvas and then piece the two halves together in Photoshop. I've done that many times. In fact, my larger canvases, the 30 by 40, I'll sometimes, if I have to, I'll take 4 pictures. I'll take a picture of each 4 corners and then splice it together in Photoshop when I get home. And it's kind of tough, but sometimes, you got to finish the painting and leave it there. Now, I will say, since I switched to oils, I bring the paintings back with me. And so I don't have that problem. Now, at home, if you're going to take a picture, before I move on, bathrooms also sometimes have better lighting, or just bring the painting back to your hotel and take a picture of it in the morning light before you hand it off to the client or the planner or whatever your process is. If you're taking pictures at home, I use a camera. In fact, it's a Nikon. I know. I don't know the lens. I'll have to find it and link to it. But I set up a camera on a tripod, and then I have a white wall, and I try to use a combination of natural light and studio lights, and try to evenly light the canvas. But more importantly than making the lighting absolutely perfect, I do hold the painting up next to me while I'm looking at that photo on the computer before I save it, just to make sure the colors are as perfect as possible. If you're I have to tell you this, you guys, for your website, if you have, just take a picture on your phone and make the lighting as even as possible. That's good enough. If you're making prints of the painting, then I would not recommend using your iPhone. The quality isn't good enough to make high quality print, like fine art prints on paper or canvas. I would either bring it back home with you and take a photo of it with a camera, or I would recommend that your clients bring it to an art conservator or a framer. There are businesses out there whose sole job is to create replications of artwork. And so there are options like that around the country. I know of 2 in my hometown of Baton Rouge, Allah's Fine Art and Renaissance Imaging. Both of those they're friends of mine, Greg and Allah and Bill, and they do beautiful work, and they offer framing as well, or canvas prints, paper prints. So you may be able to recommend your client look somewhere local to have it photographed if they want to make prints of it. but there's plenty of options for that. But that's just a quick way to answer. Take it into the kitchen or the bathroom, try to get some even lighting, or just bring it home with you and then ship it to them. The next question is, why did you switch from acrylic to oil paints? The reason I switched from acrylic to oil paints, I love acrylics, and I've been using golden open air acrylics for years. I really love how slow drying that paint is. I stopped using heavy body paints. I used heavy body paints in the beginning because that was the most opaque and it was like professional quality and it is really good paint. But for my process, this is just my preference. It dried way too fast and it would cake up on me and I couldn't stand it. And so I discovered golden open paints and I was using those for years. They are more transparent. They're not quite as opaque or heavily pigmented, but I just use more paint. I just globbed on paint. And at the end of the night, it was mostly dry. And so I could leave the painting with the client. But I also, just so you, I don't know if I know I've mentioned it before. In case you didn't know, I really, really love plein air painting. And I do that with oil paints. So I am used to the buttery quality of oil paints and using them outdoors, especially. And I just did too many outdoor weddings where the golden opens were drying too quickly because of the dryness in the air, and it really just frustrated me to the point to where I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I know that there's a better product. It's going to be more work, and it is. It's more work afterward because I have to transport the painting back home with me unless I were to hand a wet oil painting to a client at the end of their wedding. I don't like that idea. So I'd much rather take on the task of transporting a wet oil painting, touching it up in the studio if I need to, letting it dry, varnishing, packaging, shipping. I cover the cost of all of that. It is kind of considered in the price of the paintings, but it's not like, oh, here's what I charge plus, plus, plus. I don't like doing that. I don't like surprises. So I handle all of that and then I insure it and ship it across the country or wherever it needs to go. The style, like the appearance of a finished acrylic painting and one of my finished oil paintings is very similar. You almost cannot tell the difference. If you're looking for the difference, if you're an artist and you know what blended oils look like and layered acrylics look like, you could tell. But to my clients, it I think it's better because I enjoy the process more, but it feels the same. So switching from acrylic to oils was an easy transition for me, and I can still layer. I just have to be considerate of how much paint I'm layering, and maybe I'm not going to paint that spot on the canvas where I know her white dress is going to go. I'm not going to paint that dark green grass where I know a white dress is going to go. So yeah, just being intentional about the composition. That has also made me a better painter, because a better and faster painter, because I am intentional about the composition. I do plan out where everything's going to go on the canvas before I even put the brush on the canvas. So that's made me more intentional, more efficient, and just faster overall, even with oil paints. That's why I switched. And you know what? I told students in my very first launch of the course, I created the course using acrylic paints. A lot of the principles, a lot of the ways that I painted with acrylics translate to oils seamlessly. So it's I may include some updates to the course now that I'm learning more and more about oil painting live at a wedding. But the process is very similar to how I teach in the course. So that's, in case you're wondering, in case you're concerned about, oh, well, you've changed, and is the course still relevant? Yes, of course, it's very similar. But in the first year, I remember saying, oh, oil paint's just so much work. I'll never do that. And of course, I ate my words, and here I am, obsessed with painting with oil paints. So if you are curious, just email me and we'll have a conversation, or maybe you can come on the podcast and we can talk about it further. But that's why I switched from acrylic to oil paints. And I will end this episode with a final question, and it is, it's a simple one. How do I politely request testimonials? And do I need to let the client know that their testimonial may be published on my website? The best way to ask for a testimonial or a review is right after you've delivered the painting. I have texted, you could do whatever you'd like, but I have literally texted clients as they drove away from my studio when they picked it up in person, texted them, hey, thank you so much. Please leave a review. Let me know what you think, because I know they're sitting in the car and it would be easy for them to do that. I email clients asking for reviews. I make it easy for them. I send them links. Say, reviews are the best way for someone to extend trust. Like if you trust me, share the good news. When you were doing your own research, you were reading those reviews. If you're going to buy something, if you're going to invest your money into something, something as important as like a painting, you're going to look for reviews and look what people have to say. So this is a really wonderful way. If you love the painting, this is a great way to say thank you. And so you just kind of like add an emotional and an emotional element to the request and make it easy for them. Again, give them links. If they share a testimonial on Google or on the Knot or on your website, if you have a form that they can fill out, that's submitted to the public. And so it's kind of understood that that is meant for the public. If somebody writes you a handwritten note, I would ask if you could share that, because that's much more personal. If somebody sends you a text, I would ask a text or a DM, definitely ask if you could share it. Say, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. This is so meaningful. Do you mind if I share this? Most of the time they'll say, yeah, absolutely, whatever. But if they don't, if they're like, oh no, keep that between you and me, especially if they mention something sensitive in the note, then definitely respect that because that would hurt the relationship and the whole experience. So that's how you politely request testimonials immediately after the best part, which is they received the painting and they received what they paid for. And especially if they are happy about it. If it was a poor experience, or they're unhappy with the painting, or if it was a tumultuous relationship from the start, you don't have to ask them for a testimonial. That's okay. Not every painting is going to be your favorite. Not every client is going to have the most wonderful experience. That's just part of life. It's part of running a business, and that's okay too. So I hope that answers your question. Be kind and courteous and complimentary and sweet, and things more likely will go your way. I hope that these answers have shed a light on some of the things that you've been concerned about in the past, or I've answered some questions that you may have had. This is just literally scratching the surface of what I love to talk about and questions that I've been asked in the past. So if you have any questions, please send them my way. The best email is hello@thecomposedartist.com. Email us with any questions or any topics that you'd like to hear talked about on the podcast. And please tell me if you know somebody that you'd love me to interview, because those episodes have been so much fun. I've really, really loved those. But I'm going to keep these little pops of educational content coming. So thank you so much for listening. I'm so excited that we made it past episode 10. And I hope you have a wonderful day. If you have a wedding this weekend, best of luck. I can't wait to hear and see all about it. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in and joining us on this journey of artistic exploration, entrepreneurial growth, and personal development. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is both fulfilled and balanced. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe to The Composed Artist on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And don't forget to leave us a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more creatives like you. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep pursuing that composed life. You got this.